Native Americans. Let me begin with a basic premise. What you may know about Native American history, you may know as a tale of violence, a tale of great suffering, a tale of great exploitation of the Native Americans by the Europeans. It is mostly a sad and tragic story. However, as good historians, what we must avoid doing is sentimentalizing the story, or to put it another way, of idealizing the Indians. By idealizing, I mean making their societies some kind of utopia, some kind of perfection that was all destroyed by the European settlers. We will take them for what they're worth. Indians were human beings and therefore had all the qualities or all the faults that we associate with human beings. And how the Indians saw each other. There were tribes that were popular with other tribes. There were tribes that were unpopular with other tribes. There were hunting tribes. There were fishing tribes. There were farming tribes. There were aggressive tribes, warlike tribes. There were peaceful tribes. In other words, they run the gamut in their characteristics. With that in mind, let us consider things at the beginning. Human life develops in Central Africa and branches out from there. Other parts of Africa, Europe, Asia. But there was no human life for most of human history in the Western Hemisphere, North and South America. Historians have debated where and when the first humans came to the Americas. The overwhelming evidence that we have is that they came from Siberia. Between Siberia, Russia, and Alaska are the Bering Straits. 23 miles of water. They may have rowed over that, but more likely in human history, the sea levels of the ocean has undergone changes periodically, and there's evidence to show that the Bering Straits, that 23-mile distance, was once land as the sea level dropped. In other words, going across that land bridge into Alaska. Why do that at all? There are a couple of obvious surmises that we can make. One is perhaps running away from others, other tribes, other people, but more likely following the herd, following the hunt. The game that you want to catch are going there and you follow them in terms of food. So they crossed. When? We keep making discoveries, and because of our ability to date when living organisms died, the time seems to get increasingly pushed back in the evidence of when the first Indians came to the New World. The best evidence that I have seen lately is that we can trace it back at least 12,000 years ago. 12,000 years ago. Will they find evidence to push it back further? Maybe so. But that is the best that we have now. So 12,000 years ago or so, we see the first coming across that land bridge. And what follows, I have always found fascinating. We're talking in Alaska, what is now northern Canada, frigid temperatures, harsh climate of the north. And some would settle there and stay there and adapt themselves to those rigorous ways. In their fishing, in their meat eating, in their weapons, in their clothing, in their housing, to fit into that rather harsh climate. Remaining today, Inuits, Eskimos, and so on. But others would eventually migrate southward. And during glacial periods, that was rather tricky in terms of getting around those massive glaciers. Following certain pathways. South through the rest of what is now Canada, then into what is now the United States. Some staying on the
Sample complete. Ready to continue?